So what if I told you that you could build a powerful backend without ever actually leaving your front-end project? Yeah, no separate server, no complicated setup. Today, we are diving deep into one of the biggest game changers in Next.js, serverless APIs. Let's get right into it.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with the absolute basics, a simple hello world, and then we'll master the core operations for handling data. After that, we'll get into dynamic URLs, and finally, we'll see how to plug it all into a real front-end component.
First things first, where does all this magic happen? Well, the power of Next.js APIs comes from an idea that's honestly just brilliant in its simplicity. Your API structure is defined by your file structure, and it all kicks off in one very special folder.
Okay, this is the key concept you need to get. Every single API endpoint you create is literally just a file sitting in your project. Next.js handles all the complicated server stuff behind the scenes, and that is a huge deal. It means you spend way less time on configuration and way more time actually building cool stuff. You just create a folder inside /app/API, and you're pretty much ready to roll.
I mean, just look at how simple and intuitive this is. You make a folder, you call it hello, you pop a route.ts file inside it, and boom, just like that, you have a live working endpoint at /API/hello. It just makes sense. So what exactly goes inside that root.ts file? It's simple. You just export an asynchronous function. And this is where it gets really clever. The name of the function maps directly to the HTTP method it's supposed to handle. So if you want to handle a GET request, you literally name your function GET. It's that direct.
Okay, a static hello world is a great start, but let's be real, it's not very useful on its own. How do we start passing information to our API to make it truly dynamic and interactive?
Well, the easiest way to start is with query parameters. You know, that stuff after the question mark in the URL. Your API function can read all of that. This is perfect for simple things like search terms or maybe some basic filters.
And what about the data we send back? You'll notice we're using nextResponse.json, and this is absolutely crucial. Think of JSON as the universal language of the web. It's structured, it's light, and it's super easy for pretty much any application to understand. It's the language everyone agrees to speak.
All right, so we've got the basics down. Now let's get to the real meat and potatoes of almost any application, managing data. We're talking about CRUD. That's create, read, update, and delete. These are the 4 fundamental actions you'll be doing all the time.
Think of it this way. Each one of these basic actions has its own special verb, its own HTTP method. Get is for reading data. We've already seen that. Post is for creating new data. Put is for updating what's already there, and delete, well, that's for getting rid of it.
So let's say you're building a feature where a user signs up or posts a comment, right? That's creating something new. For that, you use a post request. And the actual data, the username, the comment text, gets sent along securely in what's called the request body.
And you know what? The code for this is going to look super familiar. We just create another exported function, but this time we name it post. Inside, we can easily grab the incoming data from that request body just by calling request.json.
Okay, so what about updating and deleting? They're kind of like two sides of the same coin, but there's a really important difference. Both of them need an ID so they know which specific item you're talking about. But a put request also sends a body with the new, updated information. A delete request, though, it just needs the ID. You're not sending any new data, you're just pointing to what needs to disappear.
This is awesome for sure, but all our URLs so far have been static, like /API/hello. In the real world, you constantly need to deal with dynamic stuff right in the URL itself, like fetching a specific user or a product by its unique ID.
Right, so how do you pull this off? How do you make one single endpoint that can handle /API/product/123 and /API/product/456 and any other ID you throw at it without having to make a file for every single one?
And you guessed it, Next.js has this incredibly elegant solution, and it's built right into the file system again. It's called dynamic segments. All you have to do is wrap a folder name in square brackets, like ID here, and you're basically telling Next.js, hey, this part of the URL is a variable, a placeholder.
So back in our code, the handler function now gets this new second argument. Let's call it params. And this params object will hold the actual value from the URL, which we can just access with params.id. It's really that simple to capture parts of the URL path.
You know, an API on its own is, well, it's kind of lonely.
It's not doing much if nothing is talking to it. So let's close the loop and finally see how our React frontend can actually communicate with the awesome backend we just built.
Okay, so picture this. You've got a simple React form. A user types in their info, clicks submit, and when that happens, our onSubmit function kicks in. Now we need to grab that form data and send it over to our API.
We use the good old browser fetch API. It's basically a 3-step recipe. Step 1, point fetch to our API endpoint. Step 2, tell it what method we're using, in this case post, because we're creating something. And step 3, bundle up our form data into a JSON string and stick it in the body.
And that's the aha moment. That's the entire journey. The front end uses fetch to send data over, and our Next.js backend with its post function is waiting to catch it and do something with it. That is full stack development, all happening inside one project. It's awesome.
Whew. Okay, we just flew through a ton of stuff. So let's take a quick breather and just lock in the most important takeaways from this whole explain.
All right, here's the cheat sheet. If you remember anything, remember this. API routes, they live in app/API. Your folder structure is your URL structure. Name your functions, get, post, put, or delete. Use the square brackets for dynamic URLs. And on the front end, fetch is your best friend. And finally, always respond with JSON.
You see, this whole approach just completely blurs the line between front end and back end. It opens up a whole new universe of possibilities for building faster, more tightly integrated applications. So the real question now is, with this power at your fingertips, what are you going to build first? Thanks for watching.